earliest recollections of professional wrestling involved Dick the Bruiser's later years, the 1970s and early 80s. Within a show dominated by older stars, Spike Huber stood out as an up-and-comer. After high-profile runs with both Bruiser and with Steve Regal as a young lion, Huber largely dropped out of the scene. What are your recollections of Spike Huber's career?
Well, Spike Huber was an up-and-comer when he was Bruiser's son-in-law, and when he split up with Bruiser's daughter and took up with the girl from Memphis, he was a down-and-goer. No, Spike was a great guy, and once again, he hit the nail on the head. Bruiser had started the Indianapolis territory in 1964, or not started it, but taken it over with Snyder, taken over the promotion. He had started his business in 1964, and in 1974, the same guys, the Midwest legends that were friends of his he booked on his shows, Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, Wilbur Snyder, Cowboy Bob Ellis, and a rotating cast of heels. He got all the great Midwest heels because of their interest in Chicago, but it was an age. Bobby Bold Eagle, for Christ's sake. Billy Red Cloud in the 70s, but Bobby Bold Eagle was still, because they all lived. Yukon Moose Cholak until the last day he stepped in the ring was, I mean, he was a entertaining interview, but he was a giant, fat, out of shape, near 50-year-old guy that was still being featured as babyface on the cards. So it was Bruiser's incredible personality, magnetic personality, just the aura that he had, that wrestling in Indianapolis in the state of Indiana stayed around as long as it did because his company deserved to be put out of its misery about 3 or 4 years before it actually went. But it was Bruiser. It was wrestling in Indianapolis, right? But the Spike Huber and Steve Regal, and with Mike Snyder, who nobody remembers to a degree, he didn't stick with Wilbur's son. Sam Mineker described him as the fastest man on land or sea. Yes. Yes. Because Wilbur Snyder was the world's most scientific wrestler. Well, Mike Snyder was big around as a fucking Q-tip, it looked like. They tried to call him 200 pounds, and I don't think anybody believed it, but he was a heck of a athlete from what I remember watching a 12-year-old. I don't know if there's any tape existent of him. I haven't seen any. But, he maybe 200 pounds, but more like 190 pounds, but a good athlete and flying head scissors and stuff. And he was quick because all the other baby faces were 50 years old, 250 fucking pounds plus. So Mike Snyder, but he only lasted about a year. I don't know what happened to him. That may be a question for our Midwest experts. But when Spike and Steve Regal came along, because Steve was Wilbur Snyder's son-in-law, and they were young and they were athletic, and Spike had the bodybuilder physique, and Steve was really athletic. And so I liked Spike. He was a nice kid. He was a good worker. He was a painful, awkward promo to watch, as I recall. But they looked really good in that field in Indianapolis at the time. But the jewel, the star of the show, was Steve Regal, who. And we're not talking about William Regal's original name, Steve Regal. Steve Regal, Wilbur Snyder's son-in-law. Steve had a run in Georgia. He had a couple of runs in Memphis. I think he went to Florida for a while. He was in Indianapolis on and off, and then he was with Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, was AWA tag champions for Vern. They're the ones that beat the Road Warriors. Steve Regal was one of my favorite athletic baby faces in wrestling in the late 70s and early 80s. I thought he was a tremendous worker. He was an amazing timing, amazing athletic talent, good interview, good personality outside the ring, kind of a wisecracker, funny, witty, intelligent, took an incredible turnbuckle, shoot him across the ring, had an incredible drop kick. And I guess I can't remember when he went wherever he went, but he quit the business. I want to say in like 80, and I think he worked for Crockett for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But 86, 87, quit the business or thereabouts, 88, or went to Chicago and worked locally there for a couple of years, I believe. But that was 3 years later, after he was gone out of the business, if I was, when I was booking Smoky Mountain, if I would have picked a top babyface, he still would have been around. He would have been in the fucking running. I just always was a huge fan of his. He was maybe he's maybe the best guy that nobody remembers was great these days. He could have him. He was like Brad. He could have a match with anybody, but nobody ever used him. He didn't fail being the guy anywhere because nobody ever tried to make him the guy. He was in a tag team or on the card, but and at the very least, I would have put him in a tag team. Once again, he might have popped up in the Midnight Express switch, except I think he was out of the picture at that point. I don't know. Steve Regal, by God, where is he? He never goes to. Somebody find Steve Regal. He doesn't go to autograph shows or fan fests or reunions. I haven't seen or heard of this guy in fucking ages. He was a hell of a fucking worker. He shined on his Memphis run. And him and Handsome Jimmy Valiant as a team were fucking, and worked with the goddamn Freebirds one night in Evansville, I remember, and I thought they tore the fucking house down. Steve Regal, goddamn, he's good. See, now there's for the people who say, oh, he never fucking says anything nice about anybody.